welcome to another Friday video post. Now, since it is the weekend, no doubt your children, your teenagers will be chomping at the bit for some access to screen time. Maybe you will as well. And I want to say that there is actually absolutely nothing wrong with that. I, for one, as a child and adolescent clinical psychologist, am a little tired of the overemphasis on screen time, the guilt tripping of parents, making them feel bad about their children having access to screens or devices, and the sort of done to death nature of the debate around how much screen time is too much and whether we should have screen time for kids at all. It really is putting the focus in the wrong place altogether. So in wanting to keep the discussion as positive and as practical as possible, as we always try to with these video posts, what I want to do is take focus away from screen time and look at shifting the balance into well-being instead. Because if you get the well-being right, then the screen time issue is going to take care of itself. Screens are a part of our life. There are many positive aspects to screens and devices. So anything in moderation is fine as long as we do have that balance right. And instead of agonizing over time limits and what types of devices and what types of programs, it's better to think more broadly about well-being, and then that will really sort the issue of screen time out for you. Now, as I present this to you this afternoon, there is a big storm coming over my home, so bear with me if you can hear some thunder or see flashes of light behind me in the back glass panels there. All right, so I'm going to give you a 5-finger checklist, a really easy to remember, it's going to be a cinch for you, way of keeping well-being in check for your family, for your kids and your teenagers, and focusing instead on this checklist when you're thinking about screens rather than devices and time limits, etc., etc. So the 5-finger checklist goes like this. The first finger, your thumb, represents the people that come first in your child and adolescent's life, and they are your family and their friends. So how are things going within your family? Are the relationships relatively solid? Do they get on with their siblings for the most part? Do you spend some time engaging in activities that both you and they enjoy doing with you? How are their friendships going? Are they forming friendships? Are they seeing any kids outside of the school environment? Do they have an interest that they share with those kids? Is the nature of that interest relatively appropriate for their age? These are the sorts of questions that we need to be asking around the issue of family and friends, the first and most important aspect of the wellbeing checklist. The second aspect of my 5-finger wellbeing checklist is obviously relating to the pointing finger, which is our learning finger. We use it when we're learning to read, for example, by underlining words with our fingers. So for learning, how are things going for your child and your teenager in relation to their learning? Are they performing okay in school? What are their grades like? How are they going in relation to their attitude to homework? Do they complete their work? Do they hand it in on time? Are they motivated, demotivated by their work? Do they put in any extra effort with their studies, if that's something you would like to see them do? The third finger is our longest finger. And so in the wellbeing checklist, it represents an activity that we spend a long time on, and that is sleep. How is sleep going for your child and for your teenager, and for you for that matter? How well do they get off to sleep? How well do they maintain their sleep? So do they wake during the night? And in the morning, how restful do you think they feel after a night's sleep? Sleep is a really important aspect of development and well-being, and it's probably one that we take for granted too often. All right, our 4th finger is our weakest finger, our ring finger. And so I try and remember on my checklist that since it's a weak finger, we want to strengthen it, and the way we strengthen our bodies developmentally is by exercise. So the 4th finger represents exercise. Okay, so how are your children and teenagers going in relation to sport at school? Do they participate in any team-based sport or individual exercise pursuits? outside of school? Do they exercise at all at home? Do they exercise with you? How are you going in terms of maybe modeling some exercise regimes for your kids? Then the fifth finger on the checklist of well-being is obviously our pinky, or our smallest finger, and I use it to remember the smallest word in relation to well-being, or my 5-finger checklist of well-being at least, and that is diet. So how are your kids' diets going? Is their nutrition reasonable? Are they getting a fairly balanced diet, or is there something that needs to be slightly adjusted within their diet? Okay, so there's a very easy to remember checklist. The first finger for those that are first in their life, family and friends. The pointing finger for learning, because we use it for learning. Our longest finger for the activity they spend a long time on, sleep. The weakest finger, our ring finger or fourth finger, for an area that needs to be strengthened, exercise and outdoor activity. And the fifth, the smallest finger, our pinky finger, relating to the smallest word in well-being on my checklist, which is diet. So a very easy to remember checklist to take the focus onto something practical and positive, when you can look at your child and your adolescent's development and think about how that's going, and move it away from agonizing over screen time specifically. Because, as I said, if we get the focus right in terms of well-being, then the issue around screen time will absolutely take care of itself. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video post. Please share it with others. We will be starting to record our first episode of our podcast series this coming Tuesday evening, and then we'll have several topics to cover from then moving forward. So that's very exciting. Let us know if you've got any particular topics that you want covered. Otherwise, I'll see you next Friday, and I hope you have a great weekend till then. Bye-bye now.
The Annie's Centre podcast was brought to you by Annie's Centre Proprietary Limited. Please visit anniescentre.com and subscribe to receive the latest updates and digital downloads from Dr. Anne Chalfant.